if you could switch places with a cartoon character, who would it be? And we said 6ix9ine. So.
Okay, we are officially live, boys. So
all right, we're live.
We're not recording the podcast yet, but we are live right here.
Hello.
All right. This is cool.
Great.
Yes. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. How am I coming in? Clear?
Yeah, you're good.
Good. I look good.
Yep.
I like that. I look good. But how do I sound?
Great.
Sound good.
Do I need some more space? Am I good? Everybody's good?
Yeah, we're all good.
That's good.
All right, for those of you guys watching here on Facebook Live, we are back 24 hours later. I was inspired by what I said, what I did, and the message that finally came out in the way that it did. So I decided I wanted to bring a couple people back, some very important people to me, my guests for today's experience, Fathers of the Future podcast 001. I'm joined by my good friend,
Kanon,
the miniature version of me, my mini me, my son, my firstborn, Kayyem in the house. Welcome.
Nice to see you.
Great to see you. And a
Nate
good friend of
Setlock.
mine, Nate Setlock
Yeah.
in the house,
It's good
who
to be here.
has just come off of a major surgery, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But before we get started here, guys, we're going to get started on this podcast.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Are you guys ready?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Welcome back to another episode, another life-altering experience, also known as Fathers of the Future. This is the first official launch. This is the first official track. This is the first official timestamp that we are going to be launching this podcast. And I'm super excited today for the simple fact that I have two guests on that mean the world to me. My 12 turning 13-year-old son, Kayyem. My man, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is pretty cool for me. I'll find out a little bit more about either how cool or how uncool this is to you. But I remember being 12, 13 years old, and those were the years that I started to fade. I started to drift. I started to change a little bit. And seeing you here next to me, so much further ahead than I ever was in the game of life at this age. You were just sharing with our other guest, Nate. You're studying physics.
Yep. Momentum, velocity, acceleration, quantum energy, quantum force.
Crazy stuff.
That's a little scary. We're also joined by my good friend, my neighbor, Nate Setlock, who
Hey, guys.
I've known for a couple years now, who's gone through some major life-altering, shifting, changing challenges. And we're going to get a little bit more out of him later on in this show.
For sure.
But for now, I'm going to start out like this. Kanon, my son, what's it like to have a dad?
It's amazing. I can be taught things that I know I'm doing wrong, and I can get yelled at a lot, but the better side is I can learn more from you.
So very unscripted what we're going to be talking about today with purpose. You know, in order for this to come off the way that I want it to, that I believe it truly can, the viewers, the people listening and watching this show around the world, they're going to have to feel what you and I feel every single day. And we have a connection. This reason of putting on this show, of doing the work, of going above and beyond to be able to show other men what it truly means to be a father, to be a role model, and to show young men what it means to have a father and to have a role model. It's really exciting. And yesterday I shared that I was a little nervous. Are you nervous right now?
Yeah, I was laughing when we just started. I was a little my stomach.
Yeah, stomach a little bit.
Yep.
Well, I can tell you right now from doing a lot of video content and creating over the past decade in my business and in my life, like, you're the generation that grew up like on Facebook. Camille, your sister, who's now 10, like the first photos ever that we published online of our daughter were within days. So like this generation is in front of the camera all the time. We're streaming live right now on social media, and this content will be repurposed for years and decades. Does that scare you? Because I've shared with you many times that you can't share things on the internet that you might share with your friends, right? Private stuff. You may not share it with anybody, but Mom was very adamant a couple weeks ago when she told you about the founder of Amazon and him sharing a picture of his private parts that got out. You can't do things like that. Like, I don't need to be this role model to tell you. Like, you know that, right?
Can't get catfished.
Yeah, you can't get naked in the middle of the road. Like the naked cowboy, that's not going to work any longer. Have you faced anything at school that you know is wrong, that possibly you've never shared before with anybody else, and that you just removed yourself from the situation?
No. I mean, I've talked trash to people, but not really. Nothing.
Nate.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit older here in the game, right? And this is why I've got two young men on the show, because it's a different dynamic. You know, you guys are very close in age, but very far apart in terms of what you've experienced and what you've gone through. Nate, you're 16?
Yeah, 16 years old, and as soon as you hit high school, the stuff you see at school changes so much. It's scary, you know? I mean, when I first got into, I went to Notre Dame for my first high school, and I had gone to private school all my life, so I wasn't used to a whole lot of stuff. And when I get there's people like vaping and drinking, and it was just like, oh wow, like this happened so fast. Because in 8th grade, all that stuff seemed like it was so far out in the future. Then 3 months later, you're in it. Like,
Then how was shop?
Shot was crazier. There's some stuff that happened there that I can't say on this.
Yeah, so we don't need to go into details of schools and proximity and names, but what you're saying is the gap from 8th grade to 9th grade was massive.
Oh, it was crazy. 8th grade, I was still like a kid. In 9th grade, it just was like, oh, here's the real world. It's crazy.
Yeah, so part of sharing this story and many stories on this broadcast and on this medium is to really get into like depth. I love sharing, you know, photos on the Instagram and live videos on Facebook. But the purpose behind putting a podcast together like this was for the dads that are sitting in their car, sitting in their office, or they're commuting, that need some way to understand that what it is they're going through, and possibly what their sons and daughters and children are going through, is happening everywhere, that they're not alone. So I'm going to share a story with you guys I don't know if I've shared before. Kanon, you know, you're my first guest on this show because you've grown up fast, and I don't mean fast in the way that I grew up. You've grown up understanding the game at a much different level. I still believe that when you go to high school and college and you play wide receiver, that it's because of the balls I used to throw at your head as hard as I could when you were just a baby. You were literally in a stroller, and Mom would turn her back and I'd say, watch this. I'd throw it as hard as I possibly can, and you wouldn't even see it go by you, but I know what was happening. You were building that muscle memory. And now those hands, they're magnificent, they're magical. So I believe I'm a big part of that, but it's not about me. My freshman year in high school, I also had attended private school from kindergarten until 7th grade. And I got kicked out of private school for drinking at school, drinking alcohol. 7th grade now. I'm not proud of these moments, but I share these moments with you guys and with those watching because it might help somebody get unstuck. And I was literally stuck. So I brought alcohol to school in 7th grade, and me and a couple buddies, we got drunk at school. and one of the dudes threw up in class, in his Spanish class.
Wow.
Might not have been that big of a deal, except his mom was the Spanish teacher. So you got a room full of boys, and they all point the fingers back at me. So I got expelled from private school. And like you, the jump between 7th grade private school and 8th grade public school was massive. And it took me about a year to kind of figure things out, but I had no clue what I was going to be up against my freshman year in high school.
Yeah,
It's tough.
shocking.
My first week of high school, Palm Springs High School, 1994, Kanon, your mom and I, we had known each other. We'd known each other since 7th grade. There were riots at our school. I was literally, it was the first Friday football game of the year, so it's like September. And I'm eating nachos, or maybe cheese fries. I don't know which one it was. It was one of those two. I'm dogging it up, and all of a sudden my eyes start to water. And I'm like, what's going on? And I just start to freak out and scream. I'm getting pepper sprayed. I'm literally getting hosed by the head of security because a fight and multiple fights have started to break out between the African Americans and the Mexican Americans, between the blacks and the browns, between these different rival gangs that just happen to all be at Palm Springs High School. So like when you hear me tell you sometimes that you guys are both in a bubble that we live in up here, your parents and your mom and dad have raised you in this bubble so that you don't have to grow up dealing with some of the issues and challenges we did. We literally got pepper sprayed because there was gang violence at our school. And school was suspended and it made national news. It was freshman year in high school. So looking at that and looking at your own life, it's different. It's much different. It's not going to be what it once was. You're not going to see, gangs and thugs fighting in the hallways at your school. You're going to see different things. You're going to see kids possibly stealing their mom's or dad's prescription medication. So, do you fear anything right now in your life whatsoever? Either one of you guys?
Yes.
Is this something you want to share?
No.
Okay.
Not precisely. I mean, just criminals, bad people, especially bad people.
Bad people. Okay.
For me, heights don't bother me. I mean, bad people really don't bother me. I just keep my distance. But there's one thing that always gets me, and that's needles and IVs. Like, I don't know what it is. There's just something about seeing this little piece of metal go inside your vein, that's something that I just cannot stand.
Okay, totally different perspectives there,
Yeah.
and I think that's great. What I'd like to do is possibly challenge you guys to use those fears as fuel for your future, right? You guys have both heard me share my story about my mom and my dad, and there's no need to repeat it. You understand where I come from and why I'm in this place and in this position and why I choose to lead others to get out of whatever they're struggling in. But using my past and my pain for purpose is ultimately what's given me so much abundance. So right now, you each have a fear, and they're completely different fears on different levels. One might fear one and the other not at all. I don't fear either of your two fears. It doesn't make me better than you. It doesn't make me more special than you. It doesn't make me a freak or an alien or a creature. I just have gotten past those fears because of where you guys are in your own life. You haven't gotten past it yet. You haven't had the tools to get past it, or you just haven't had enough experience. So understanding that you're afraid of things, don't let it hold you back. Don't let it hold you down. Face your fear. Okay, this is what I'm afraid of and why. These are the details. This is what happened. These are the experiences. Okay, great. I can't fear those things for long, because if I do, they're going to hold me back from other things that I fear. Fear is a liar. Fear will literally hold you back and lie to you to the point where you won't want to go do things. I know your fear. You won't want to go outside. You won't want to go and experience or explore or travel. For you, it's minor. right?
Yeah.
Will you ever get over that? Possibly not. If you remember an old show called The A-Team, Mr. T, he had an afro, and he had a mohawk, he had a bunch of jewelry. Mr. T, I pity the fool. No?
I don't Mr. T.
Well, yeah. Mr. T was afraid of two things, flying in planes and needles. And he never, ever, ever got past that fear. So we're going to come back to you guys in a couple years, and see if you found a way to get over that hump and get past those fears.
All right.
Nate, I'm going to bring you into this thing. I'm going to throw you right in the fire.
Okay.
You've had two major life-altering experiences, I'd say, in the past 3 to 6 months.
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's going on? And what I want to do is be able to insert this photo in so that people can see what major surgery you just went through, and how you've overcome it. I mean, you're fresh off of a procedure, 2 weeks. It's just like you've been out a little bit, but not in this kind of environment.
I haven't. No, this is the first time I've been out, like, doing stuff like this. Like, I've been out to eat and little stuff like this, but this is a first for me since the surgery, so this is awesome.
Yeah, so break it down. What kind of surgery did you have and why?
Well, I was born with scoliosis, and we didn't even know I had it till, I believe, 6th or 7th grade. Maybe, I think 6th grade, that's when we found out about it. And then we kind of just ignored it. I had a brace for a little bit, and I played football too, so I think that was a factor. But in February 2017, I had surgery. And I mean, yeah, it was difficult. Like, it was hard, it was long, but eventually I got through it. And
so you're being humble. I got to cut you off. Hard and long. 8-hour surgery and 9 screws in your spine.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about. But honestly, like, looking back at that surgery, the worst thing for me was the needles. Like, I couldn't stand the needles. I could deal with the pain. Pain doesn't bother me. It's just the needles. Like, physically looking at them in your arm is just...
Yeah.
Looking back at that surgery, that was the roughest thing for me. But this surgery is totally different. Like, it was... I underestimated it a lot.
So you had the same surgery less than 2 years later?
Almost... Well, 2 days less than 2 years. So 2 days after the second surgery was 2 years since the first surgery. But the second surgery, I went into it. We went to New Brunswick, New Jersey. We had to go to New York, New Jersey area because that's where the surgeons were. So the first surgery I had right in Manhattan. I had it in the Upper East Side, and I wanted to move to New York, so that was awesome for me. I had a nice view of Central Park, and yeah, that was cool. This surgery was in New Brunswick, which is in New Jersey, outside of the city. It's, I guess, suburbia, you could say.
Why did your parents take you out of state? Is it because of the specialist, because of the doctors, because of the procedure, all three?
It was kind of all three. So the surgeons over in New York, New Jersey are kind of like the best in the world. They're like the only people that do the surgery. They're the only people that would do it for us, so we basically had no other choice, or I would have been out for 8 months. But yeah, the second surgery, I underestimated it a lot. We woke up at 5. I was kind of just going into it. I didn't really even think about it until I saw, I guess, the needle and all the hospital clothes, and that's kind of when it hit. It was like, oh, I'm gonna be here a while. So.
And this procedure, the second one, was how many hours?
It was longer than the first one by like 4 hours. So I'm not even sure how long. I believe it was 8 or 9.
8 or 9 hour surgery.
Wow.
Yeah, but so anyway, I had the surgery, and the first thing I remember waking up was I had an oxygen mask on, like those big ones that go over your nose and mouth. I had one of those on, and I just looked around, and then I just threw up right into the mask. That was brutal. And then the next 4 or 5 days, and well, I was in the hospital for 8 days, but the last few days weren't terrible. But the first 4 or 5 days, was by far the hardest thing I've ever been through.
And part of that has to do with the fact that you cannot take pain medicine.
I can't take pain medicine. They tried, I think, every pain medicine on me, and it just made me throw up and get sick. So instead of getting sick, I'd rather just deal with the pain, because for me, I have a high pain tolerance, and that's easier than throwing up all the time, because I don't know, I just can't do that. I would rather be able to hold food down and basically recover, because the pain medicine stopped me from recovering instead of helping me. So I couldn't take any of that.
So you go through a major procedure, 8 or 9 hours straight. You get out of it. Obviously, you've been put under. You're still under anesthesia. You come out of it.
Yeah.
You throw up. You can't take pain medicine, and you can barely move your back and your spine.
Oh, I couldn't move it at all. I mean, I remember the first time they had me sit up, it was like, man, they had me sit up, I think the second day it was, and like, they were like, all right, it's time to sit up. I was like, I physically can't sit up, and then they like moved me, and they got me to sit up, and I was like, wow, I just did that. I remember when they told me, I thought it was impossible. I was like, there's no way I'm gonna sit up. Like, you guys could try, but eventually they did, and I guess that's kind of how the whole thing went, because they would say something like, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and I'd be like, that seems impossible, that's never going to work out, and then it does. For example, so we got out of the hospital the 8th day from the surgery, so it's been a week and a day, and we finally get out because I'm finally able to hold foods because I'm not on pain medicine. So we get out, and I'm just looking at New Brunswick and New Jersey, and it's like, this is depressing, I kind of want to get out of here. And it was in the dead of winter. So I really wanted to get back to Phoenix. So what we did was we looked for flights in, I think, the Newark airport and JFK. There was no flight, so we looked at Philadelphia, and we had to fly to Philly. And at first I was like, oh, there's no way I'm going to be able to drive all the way to Philadelphia and then take a plane from Philadelphia and do all this. And then I guess when it came down to it, I was just like, all right, well, here we go. And then a week out of surgery, I was in a car on a bumpy road. The bumps were kind of bad at first, but then I was in the airport, and I had been laying down for a week. I had barely been sitting up, and here I was at an international airport. So,
and we're going to put a picture of the before and after of your spine side by side that your mom gave me, because it is dramatic. You talk about scoliosis, and I'm not a doctor. There's no doctors in the room, but this is something that plagued our society hundreds of years ago. We felt like it's something that nobody I know has ever gotten at a young age, and I know they check you when you're growing up in grade school, but this is debilitating, and it's not something that you catch. It was something that just, it happened over time.
Yeah.
So looking back on that and your experience, like, how do you now go forward, knowing that like you've already accomplished something that most people will never have? I'm 40, and I've never gone through a surgery like that. So you've experienced this pain, you've pushed past the pain threshold, you've gotten extremely uncomfortable, you've had to start and stop and then start over again. In between the two surgeries, you and I started training together and doing some strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
And that helped build some foundational muscles and kind of get your mind right. Where do you go from here? What does your road to recovery look like?
Well, so in my life, I've been through a ton of stuff. I've been through more stuff than I could count, and I take pride in that. So, I mean, yeah, all of this stuff sucks now, but as soon as I'm done, it'll just be like another battle scar, you could say. Like, I take pride in going through this. Like, it makes me who I am, and I take pride in everything that I've gone through in my life. So that's kind of how I'm going to move forward. I have exciting stuff planned for life, so I'm excited.
That's extreme ownership. You're taking ownership. You're not blaming things. I was a big blamer when I was your guys' age. I blamed my mom having me at an old age. I blamed my dad for not being around. You guys are both being taught, both at home and in life, that you have to take ownership. Ownership for yourself, ownership for your actions, ownership for your discipline or lack of discipline. Kanon, I just so happen to be wearing the Brand X Method Unbullyable shirt. My good friend Jeff and Mickey Martin, who started the CrossFit Kids program a long time ago, who ultimately went their own way and are now still continuing to teach youth in physical fitness and sports and psychology and mindset. You were taught underneath that. That's where you've built your foundation, why you're such a great athlete. It's not from genes and genetics. Like, mom and dad are not species. I'm barely 6 feet tall.
Yeah, you're 5'11".
Speak up, because
Yeah,
we're on a
5'11".
podcast. Yeah, I'm 5'11", and why do you think I'm 5'11"? Because we're going to get into some real...
I measured you.
Oh, you never measured me. It wasn't even a doctor, it was a nurse.
Yeah, the nurse did. 5'11" and a half.
I'm 6 feet tall.
Okay.
So...
You're 71 inches.
Yeah, well, your parents are not species. They're not freaks. So this talent that you have to play sports exceptionally well, basketball, football, baseball, all kinds of sports. But that foundation comes from you guys, Kanon, you and your sister, learning how to train and eat at a very young age. You don't always love it. You don't always love it when I wake you up in the morning to go train in the garage. You don't always love the feeling that your arms in your chest gets after doing some bench press. You don't always love, maybe you do, you're a little different than your sister, kale salad and chicken and...
I don't like the kale, I like the chicken.
Yeah. Well, regardless, you have this foundation. A foundation that most men, most adults, most fathers don't have. And you have it at the age of 12. Do you feel like you have an advantage on other kids, regardless if they're at your school, but other schools, in the way that you eat and the mindset that you have and the way that you physically can train and push and challenge your body?
Yes, I do think, but at the same time, I can't stop doing this because then they would catch up to me and then we'd be even again. I need to keep that lead and not slow down.
So speaking of leads and speaking of heights and weights, this is the first time we're going to talk about this, and I was listening to another podcast earlier today about concussions, which is something that we all suffer.
I do not believe in.
I've had a few. Well, that's going against modern day science, so I would be careful about saying that, because as smart as you are, there'll be some doctors that would tend to disagree. However, there's something that you feel passionate about that I'm going to support you in. And this is the first time we're going to talk about it because it is a topic of discussion, as I truly believe it's important. I played tackle football. I played 7th, 8th, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then a little bit of 13, one season junior college football. And my football career ended because my good friend, during a hitting drill, lit me up. And I got a spinal electrocution. I got a zinger down my back that didn't go away for a couple days. So I decided that was enough for me. Plus I was barely 6 feet tall and 165 pounds. I read the book. I read Julian Edelman's
Relentless.
autobiography, Relentless.
Yeah.
And after I got done with it, I came to you and I said, son, I support you. I know what you want. Mom's not going to agree with it. Mom's not going to go for it. But I understand why you want to play tackle football next year. There's a lot of different reasons why. One of the main ones is you're a freak. You're a phenomenal football player. You're a great basketball and baseball player. You're a great athlete, but you are clearly in a level above your competition in all flag football leagues that you've ever participated in, going on 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
So I see this gift in you, but the gift is not enough. Raw talent alone is not enough. So I read the book and I was inspired by Julian Edelman and his dad, and this was weeks before he won the Super Bowl and became MVP. So I came to you, and what did I say?
He said, if you want to play tackle football this year, you got to gain 10 pounds.
And?
Finish the book.
And?
I don't remember.
So there was 3 pieces to it. The first piece was you needed to read the book. And then you needed to write Mom.
Oh yeah, I need to write Mom a letter telling her why I should play tackle football.
And need to gain
10 pounds.
Right.
And I'm a 1 pound there.
You're 1 pound closer. You're 8 or 9 chapters into the book. So you've got some work to do. So dads, it wasn't like I was just going to come home and say, I want my son to play football because he's a great athlete. I had to do some discovering, some self-discovering. I had to do some evaluating my son's mindset, his body structure, his position, his purpose. And I'm not in this game for some storytelling lifestyle so that my son can make it to the NFL. That's not a thought for me, and it's not a thought for him. However, playing tackle football taught me some of life's greatest lessons that I was never, ever, ever, ever able to replicate in any other way. I've been through some SEAL Fit programs, some warrior programs, some CrossFit competitions. I've been through some brotherhood events that go deep into the physical and mental and spiritual system, but nothing like 10 other men on the football field in war gear, ready to attack their opponent. And I even miss it just talking about it right now. The smell of wet grass, the helmet that often hurt, my stinky lineman that would always be in the huddle with me. And I played receiver too, like you, and free safety. I played both ways and most special teams.
I play strong safety.
So why do you want to play football next year? For not only me, you're not saying it to please me. You're not saying it for the people that are listening or watching. You're saying it for you. Wait, take a sec. Hold on, slow your roll. There you go, that's a good breath. What's your intention in playing tackle football next year?
I want to become an NFL football player, play professional football. And I'm really good at hitting people, like as a strong safety for my age. So I really want to light people up and just know that I can play football.
Okay, so Mom comes home and says, no way, no way, no effing way. And she means it. What would happen to you?
I wouldn't freak out. I mean, I probably would freak out, but I would try to to ask again in a week, and then ask again in a week.
So you'd be relentless in the questioning.
Yep.
What about those other 3 things that need to get done?
Halfway there for the book. I'm on chapter 12, I think, and there's 19 chapters. And then I need to write a letter, and I need to gain 9 more pounds now.
Okay, let's stick on the 9 pounds. The other 2 things you're going to have to do on your own, but with the help of your dad.
We're eating proteins. I gotta eat mainly proteins and carbs and a lot of vegetables. Rice and eggs is our go-to breakfast a lot of the times, and dinner. We eat that for dinner. And I have to be lifting more, Olympic lifting.
Sounds good to me. You content with the work that you know you need to do?
Yes, sir.
So right now, I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, I have given you a level 7 in terms of discipline and accountability. Up to this point, I'm not talking about in the past when we ran gyms and we would train all the time together. I'm talking about now in this new 7th grade version of yourself where you play 3 sports pretty much year round. So there is no off season. So I've given you a level 7, at least in the past 8 weeks that we started this conversation. That means how hard I push you. That means how hard I push food on you. That means how early I wake you up. That means how relentless I have been with you as your dad first, your coach second, and your mentor third. So are you going to be okay if I kick it up a notch to 8 or 9 or possibly even 10 in the next 4 months?
Yep, I need to do the work.
Okay, so we're going to turn it on a little bit. Nate, flip gears on you now.
Yeah.
You're back to work, you're back home, you're doing online school.
Yeah, online school.
What do you want to be when you not grow up, because we don't ever want to grow up, dads, but what do you want to be next?
Well, for most of my childhood, I wanted to be in the NFL. I had the whole tackle football thing. I wasn't good at it, so I knew I had to find something else. So I started watching a lot of YouTube videos in 8th grade. Well, end of 7th grade, and I guess towards 8th grade I started making them. And the videos were not kid-friendly, so I got suspended from school for...
So give us a sample here, because I've been suspended and expelled in grades, middle school and high school. Just give us a sample here so we know what not to do.
All right. So I guess you could say I was pretty relentless with it. Like, they were like, you can't do any more of these videos, it's a warning. And then winter break came and I made like 10 new videos. And they were all like the same stupid stuff.
So stupid stuff. These dads got to know.
Pranks.
Like
pranks, swearing, and just going to supermarkets.
Did you hurt any people or any animals?
No.
Did you hurt yourself?
Pranks, maybe.
With pranks, yeah. Or like slapping your friend or whatever. Just
So
like
very
that.
Steve-O, Jackass based kind of comedy.
A lot like that, just ridiculous stuff. And I guess the school saw that after winter break, so they're like, all right, well, we gave you a warning, kept doing it, now we're suspended. So, and my principals were mad. Like, I've never seen, I went to a Catholic school.
In-school suspension or?
I got in-school suspension.
That's the worst.
But yeah, I thought it was a Catholic school, and they were screaming at me, swearing at me. I was like, wow, this is crazy.
Okay, what did you learn?
To be careful what you put out there. I learned.
So freeze frame that for a second. Let's use this as a coaching moment, both for dads and sons. One of my coaches and mentors, Garrett J. White, has a very powerful quote that he says. And I've been saying it a lot this year, as this has been the greatest capacity for expansion in my life. And what I bring to the table for being a dad and a husband and a father of the future and a coach and a leader. You either win or you learn, but you never lose.
That's true.
So your biggest takeaway from that is be careful what you put online.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends. Like, it all comes down to what your image is. And my image, from those YouTube videos, it wasn't good. So
How did the school find out?
everyone at school was watching them. They were playing them on the school smart boards, and then
Yeah, part of everything being live and online is that you can't get away with anything. Like
that's true.
All criminals are stupid because you can't get away with anything anymore. So just knowing that in general, I'm not calling either one of you a criminal, but what I'm saying is, like, I'll use the example here. I had a young man that I coach, I'm not going to say names, don't say a name, who rolled up to my house, and in his sock was his vape pen. Let me tell the story. I'll let you add to it. And I asked him several times how vaping was going. Has he quit it? Has he stopped? And this is a kid who said to me for the past couple months, I want to quit. I don't want to do it. And he literally looked me in the eyes and lied to me for a good 10 minutes until finally I said, bro, this is my last chance. This is your last warning. Tell me the truth. I'm not going to judge you. I've done way worse than you've ever done and ever imagined to do. And he said, yeah. And I said, bro, how hard was that? Your fucking vape pen is in your sock. You're an idiot. You're a moron, dude. Like, let's be real. What do you learn? What do you learn from that? What do you learn when you start? So for me, like, I always kept making the same mistake over and over and over. Like, I didn't learn. Until finally I got into so much trouble that it was either learn or die, or learn or go to jail, or learn or... And I've shared this with you, Kanon. I'm going to share it with the listeners. Like, my 3 best friends growing up, great neighborhood, after you.
All right. 2 of them are dead. 1 of them's in prison.
And 1 is homeless on drugs in the streets.
Yeah, and house arrest.
These are good. they were good kids. They grew up in good homes and good communities. They weren't perfect. Not everyone is. But three of my closest friends, one's dead, one's in prison, and one is homeless on the streets addicted to drugs. And the thing is, none of us, you, me, your sister, my buddies, not one of them, when they were any of the ages that you guys are right now, said, when I grow up, I'm going to die. When I grow up, I'm going to go to rehab. When I grow up, I'm going to go to jail. Like, nobody just attacks it like that.
Yeah.
So how do you learn from the mistakes that you've both made? Everybody makes mistakes. How do you learn from guys like me, from fathers of the future who literally just tell it like it is so that you don't have to face those same challenges, or at least you can compare yourself and your situation? What would Dad do? What would my dad do if he was in that?
Well, the only way you can learn is wanting to stop, wanting to get it done. Instead of doing, you have to do what's necessary to get the job, know what you're doing.
Okay, so what if you don't know though? Like, okay, so there's somebody listening right now.
You gotta figure it out. You gotta use your mind to figure it out.
What happens if your mind is full of junk like drugs and alcohol and nonsense and social media?
Then you gotta get some help.
There we go.
You gotta get somebody to help you out.
There we go.
Such as you.
That was not a shameless self-promotion because my son actually plugged me. But yes, that would work. You could hire somebody like me, but it's not about my business. It's not about what I do. It's about helping other dads who possibly are completely disengaged from the reality of their family. You know, one of the keys, one of the special ingredients to the success of this podcast over time and in the future is going to be like you guys growing up in this environment and ultimately having your own message. So you both grew up with dads, but both of your dads grew up without dads. And my life is not yours, and your dad's life is not yours, and vice versa. So I often catch myself sharing the pain of growing up without a dad with my son, which I know is not fair to either one of us. Just like I don't live my childhood through his, but I do enjoy it. Yesterday was a perfect example. You had baseball practice, club baseball. It's a couple $100. It's a car payment a month. And you didn't want to go. And I didn't get pissed. I didn't get mad. I didn't let you off the hook. But what ended up happening?
I went, you took me, and you stayed and watched.
And how'd that make you feel?
Better.
It made me feel better. Is there anything that you've ever quit, Nate, that you might think of and say, man, I wish I wouldn't have done that. That was a life lesson. I quit that team, or I quit that league, or I quit that system, or I quit that you can look back on and say, man, that's a learning moment for me.
Well, the only sport I was really I loved was football. And I had to quit that freshman year because of changing schools and grades. There was just too much stuff going on in my life, and I couldn't play football anymore. But I guess I was also kind of forced to because of my back, and I didn't want to be pushing it as much. But I loved playing tackle football. I mean, a lot of times I was like, I don't want to go. Like, I remember they had us waking up at 5 in the morning, and this was before I started working out with you and learned to like it. So it was rough, but I liked it for some reason. I don't know what I liked it for, but I liked it a lot. I actually loved it. And then I guess not being able to do that now, not being a part of a football team, that kind of was I wish I would have stayed, but I mean I couldn't have. So there's no regrets. I'm happy where I'm at.
No regrets. I love that. That's super powerful, right? I use my childhood, where you guys are, as really the foundation to be able to build and teach. I quit my freshman basketball team, and that's a story I've shared with a lot of people. I didn't quit. My best friend quit, and I just stood next to him and nodded my head. And the thing is, my mom didn't know better to not let me quit. What we talk about in our house, which is a great tool, is at least once a season, doesn't matter what sport, what season, what child, they want to quit. It happens. And what I simply say to them is this: I understand your frustration, I've been there, but we don't quit. We don't quit on a season, we don't quit on our team, we don't quit on ourselves. When the season's over, we'll take a week to digest the good and the bad, what went right, what went wrong, and then we can come back and reevaluate and say, are we going to continue in that sport, on that team, in that league with those coaches? So dads, that's a coaching tip of the day. Make sure you put that one in your pocket, but it's easy to quit. It really is just easy. What's my license plate say, boys?
Show up.
Show up.
That's a reminder to us all. Like 90% of success is just showing up, just being here. If you don't show up to the game, how can you catch a pass? If you don't show up to school, how can you learn something you didn't know? If you don't show up tonight, how can you get on this podcast? First podcast?
First podcast ever.
First podcast?
Yes, sir.
There you go. First official podcast for these two young men. And one of them is already chasing his dream of becoming a YouTube sensation and changing lives all around the world.
Yeah.
And the other one has a pretty powerful social media channel already. Probably needs to work it a little bit more. He needs to study his dad's game on Instagram, that's for sure. But you guys are both being launched into this. And I'm super proud just to be here in this moment. So I want to just show my appreciation and gratitude for both you boys, for where you're at in your life's journey. And you truly make me who I am. You make me more, you both make me proud and happy and excited with, everybody wants to blame the youth, the troubled youth of America, the troubled youth of America. But the reality is,
70s.
Well,
Everyone in their 86 years old.
yeah, we're not even comparing. But the simple fact is, like, the people who are yelling troubled youth, they're not spending any time with you guys.
Yeah.
Like, a good part of my day revolves around spending time with kids between the ages of 10 and 18. Like, there's a few hours a day I get to do that. And it lights me up. When we train together at 5 in the morning, it lights me up.
I love it, yeah.
When we spend time together in the morning or at night or after school, it lights me up. So before you go and complain or ridicule or point your finger at the troubled youth of America, you got 3 fingers pointing right back at you. Take a look at, are you surrounding yourself? Do you teach? Do you train? Do you lead? Do you educate? Do you even take the time to have conversations with these dudes? I do. And it has given me this power, this sense of purpose, this passion for what I'm doing on a greater level and a grander scale. And that is why Fathers of the Futures is happening. That's why we're live with it. And this is now a real shameless self-promotion. April 12th and 13th this year, just about 40 days from now, we're going to be hosting, I'm going to be putting on the first experiential training of the year for Fathers of the Future here in Scottsdale, Arizona. It's a 2-day course. Day 1, some of the stuff that you've already been trained in. We will work on activating power, climbing to the top of mountains, doing MMA boxing in a gym, doing some tactical training. We will combine all those physical, mental, and emotional states to have one massive day that will lead to you becoming a more powerful man. And on day 2, it's a boardroom setting. We will spend the day inside of a classroom teaching and training and learning about different ways to be able to connect to ourselves, our mind, our body, and our spirit, but also to be able to connect to our significant other and our kids and the youth inside of our neighborhoods and our communities and our cities and our states, our countries, and ultimately around the world. Boys, if you could change the world, one thing right now, magic wish, boom, anything, what would it be?
Probably what people do to animals and climate change.
That's so boring. You don't believe in that. No way.
Climate change?
Well, I know you believe in it, but that's not what you would change overnight.
Oh, okay then.
Go deep, go deep. We're coming back to you, Nate.
All right.
One change in the world.
I guess I would change tension between countries so it makes it less complicated to travel, with like airports, like lighten up on the security, let more people travel to more countries, get rid of visas, just allow for free travel, because that's the best way to see the world and live.
I'm gonna go with Nate, kind of related to that, making the world religious tolerance, where if you're in the U.S. you don't have to be a Christian or if you're a Jew, and if you're in Islamic area, you don't have to be Islam. You can be whatever you want to be, without killing each other for power over a religion where the religion is telling you not to kill, but you're doing that at that same time.
So those were both really, really amazing. Here's the thing. You guys both are capable of making that change. Like, there's going to be people along your journey in life that are going to say you can't do something, you shouldn't do something, it's not going to happen, right? What do we call those people?
Haters.
Right. Haters are always going to exist. They always do. And in true winning fashion, one of my icons, one of my favorites, whether you like him or not, Tom Brady said, I just laugh and smile at the haters because I'm not going to hate back, because that would be going against what I believe in, and I want to pick people up. So you guys have the capability, you have the mindsets, you have the foundation to be able to go and change the world. Whether you want to, have freedom across countries around the world, or you want to save and fix global warming, like, you guys can do that. Don't ever let anybody tell you you can't.
Oh, can I change mine a little bit?
You can add to it. How about that?
Also, social rights, not racism, not like discriminating African Americans, women. Just make everyone's equal.
One last thing before we go. If you could, what's that?
You go on.
One last thing before we go. If you were to become a dad one day in your future, what is the one thing that your dad does that you love and believe in, and what is the one thing that you would do totally different? We'll go to Kanon first.
I would teach how my dad teaches and inspire people. One thing I'd do different is teach sports much better. Not make really bad calls when playing at Phoenix Suns Stadium.
Example, go ahead, share, tell the story.
So we're at we're at the stadium where the Suns play. Championship game. We make it so we're down by 8, us starters go in, we come back, we make it go to overtime in Sun Stadium, and my dad puts in the worst 5 kids on the team. And I probably shouldn't have done this, but me and my friend, 2 best players on the team, went off. We were so pissed off. We just, as soon as he put that in, we gave up on our team. And that sort of the reason we lost, because with us giving up, they didn't have their confidence to do it. But at that same time, he made a terrible call.
So what'd you learn?
Not to freak out after bad calls.
It's the longest you haven't talked to me. You didn't talk to me for a day.
Yeah.
He was so mad. And I simply said, for my dads out there who are going to coach their kids, or who have coached their kids, this is me as the coach of your school basketball team, and this is me as your dad. When the game is over, my coaching ends.
Yeah, he said don't talk about basketball.
I said I didn't want to talk about basketball, and you were so mad at me for a day. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Nate.
All right, so one thing that my dad does that not a lot of my friends' dads are the same way with this. My dad can be hard. Like, he'll be like, I remember when I was in 6th and 5th grade, he'd always be like, we're gonna go take a hike, we're gonna go run, we're gonna go swim, and I'd always be like, no, but like, he wouldn't take it for an answer. So I guess he just has always wanted to toughen us up, and he's old fashioned. He's very hardcore.
So you could use a piece of that for your future kids one day.
Yeah.
And what's the one thing you would do different?
I would travel to different places. I would get a job that would allow travel. Because my dad's a dentist and you can't travel much out of the year. So.
But he's committed. He works hard.
He's committed. He doesn't love his job though. He's always like, man, I wish I could do something else. But he works his ass off. He does.
To the young men watching this show, listen to both Kanon Kayyem, 12 years old turning 13, and Nate Setlock, 16 turning 17, and just hear the wisdom. This isn't anything extra special. This is just the way that both of their dads have talked to and raised them since they were young. And both of their dads grew up without dads, myself and Jason Setlock. And it's given us power to hold them to a certain level, a certain standard. It has allowed us to change and rewrite the game. And that's what this show is all about. The true purpose, the inspiration, the motivation, the education, and the entertainment are all for anybody out there who wants to just learn a little bit more about how to become a better man, to ultimately raise better kids. You don't need the headset on. Go ahead, my little Wookiee friend. You feeling good?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Thank you guys for stopping by.
Thank you guys.
We will see you soon on the next episode of Fathers
The future.
of the Future.
Fathers of
All right.
the future.
We went 51 minutes there.
Good.
Excellent job.
Great. Well, my legs